So I installed the DynoJet Power Commander 5 in my 2019 Kawasaki ZX6R. It fits really nicely back here in the passenger part of the tail section. I removed the servo mechanism for the exhaust servo, and I replaced it with a servo buddy, which hides neatly in this little pouch of plastic here. And I also 3D printed this little Tetris-shaped piece of plastic that has the Velcro on it so that it very neatly sits almost flush, even though there's a lot of screws and other things in there. So there's also a little bit of storage room left in the compartment now that I have this here. Anyway, I actually started filming the entire process of installing it, but I found as I was going through and watching a JP Cycles video, I think it was on a 2013 Kawasaki ZX6R, that the installation process was the exact same. And their video was extremely detailed, and I figured not much value in me doing the same thing over again. I'll just link to that video in the description because it was so effective. But overall, it was a very easy installation. Even things like taking off the gas tank, which seemed like it would be somewhat difficult to do, ended up being pretty easy. You don't even need to remove the fuel out of the fuel tank. There's a quick release connector that you pop off, and even though I had half a tank, nothing, I got a few drops that spilled. You put a rag underneath it just to catch those. Again, all the steps are detailed pretty well in that JP Cycles video, so please check out that link below if you're looking to do this installation yourself. I rode around the bike a bit with it in. I haven't put any tunes on it, so I didn't notice any power difference, and I wasn't expecting to. I am taking it next weekend, though, to a local tuning shop to get on the dyno and have them tune this to my Yoshimura Alpha pipe, and I'm about to put in the K&N 6009 race filter. So I should have done it at the same time that I installed the Power Commander 5 since I had the tank off, but it arrived a day later so I am going to install this race spec air filter. It's the KA6009R model, and I think it's actually for, I think it's 2013 all the way through the 2019 ZX6R, so you can use the previous generation bike's air filter for this. Anyway, once I have this in, then again next weekend I'm going to take it into the tuning shop to have the Power Commander 5 tuned for this setup. It should be a pretty easy installation. We're going to remove these side panels here. I've got these now nicely in carbon fiber. Pulling those off, and then I think I can just pivot the tank up. The tank has a pivot point here. For the Power Commander 5, I had to remove the tank altogether, but I'm hoping this time I can just bring it up high enough to get to the airbox, pull off the screws, and drop in the new filter. So we'll start off with taking off these side panels. These actually just in the back here pop off. There's some Velcro here. There's another post here that goes into a piece of rubber, and then up here at the front there's a single screw here that needs to get backed out, and then these pop off. There's also this rubber grommet here. Be mindful that when you're putting it back, you have to pull the grommet out first. The piece that I just removed, carbon fiber on mine, usually is plastic, goes over this, and then this rubber grommet goes through both of those. And then the plastic piece here goes over it with the screw going into this. This has a metal threading inside that expands to keep both the gray fender and the carbon fiber part secured to this plastic component. So make sure you don't lose this, but remember that this goes through the side fairing, then through this, and then underneath this for the bolt to go through. Posts. And then it kind of slides back, it's slotted in the front. Okay, so both of those side pieces are off now. Next is to remove these two bolts. Then we should be able to pivot it up. I did put a towel back here behind the tank just so that as it comes up, it's not scratching anything. Let's try to just lift this up. It's about as high as it goes, and I think that's going to be good enough. The problem is that I need to actually hold this at the same time. I can access all of the flathead screws that go around the air box here. Let me just find a solution to keep this propped up as I do that. The solution is probably going to be my wife. Okay, so with the assistance of my wife, I do have it propped up. Let me find a screwdriver and start taking those Phillips head screws out. All right, and that should be all of them. And airbox is off. Or the top of the airbox is off. So you can see here how the OEM filter looks. It has this grating over it. My wife is straining, so I'll move quickly to remove the OEM filter. Mine's pretty new. It only has a few hundred miles on it. So let's open up the K&N race filter. The filter is pre-oiled. Some little strands there. But yeah, it's actually pretty oily. I'm going to go ahead and just pop this back in. Make sure that's the right orientation. Get that back in and get the cover back on. So installation is inverse of removal. I'm just going to get all these screws back in and the air sensor snapped back on and get everything back together. Okay, and with all 8 screws replaced and the air sensor filter reconnected, as well as this wire routed properly in the gearbox, so we can set the gas tank back down. Thanks, babe. And then we just need to replace the 2 Allen bolts here and get the side fairings back on, and that should be it. Okay, so with all the panels on and the seats back, let's go ahead and fire it up for the first time with the air filter on. I'd like to say it was actually revving a little bit freer, but who actually knows? So in the next video, we'll be taking this down to the tuning shop. They'll throw it on the dyno, hook up the Power Commander 5, and see what kind of power we can get out of tuning both for the K&N intake and the Yoshi 3/4 exhaust. I don't have too many more mods planned at this point, but interested to see first with these basic settings what kind of power we're making on this bike. All right, so I just got back from GP Bikes where they had my bike for a few hours doing some dyno tuning with the Power Commander 5 and the K&N 6009R intake that I have on the bike, and the Yoshimura Alpha 3/4 exhaust that I've got. So with no tune on the PCV and the intake and pipe, I was getting 105 horsepower at the wheel and 43 foot-pounds of torque. And then after the tuning at max power, I was getting 110 horsepower and 45.7 foot-pounds of torque. So about 5 more horsepower and 2.5 foot-pounds of torque increase. More importantly though is that he smoothed out the entire power band. I was having a couple of different issues. One was that when I was at a stoplight and if I'd pull hard on the throttle as I was taking off, I'd get a bit of a blip that almost felt like it was going to kill the engine, and then it would kick in, but it kind of gave a weird kick to the bike that obviously I wasn't comfortable with. So he was able to smooth that out. All the way to 14,000 RPM, the bike feels very smooth throughout the power band. So that I think is the more important part about getting something tuned. It isn't about that extra 5 horsepower at the very top that honestly I'll never notice or see, but it's about getting that nice smooth power curve throughout the entire RPM range. So anyway, really happy that I finally got this tuned. I don't have too many more immediate mods planned, but at least now I've got some baseline horsepower and torque numbers for any other mods that I do in the future. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned for other videos coming up on this bike. I'm going to start doing some moto vlogs and keep you posted on other things that I modify as I continue to enjoy this Kawasaki ZX6R 636. Thanks a lot.